February 29, 2024, marked a turning point as Russian President Vladimir Putin made a series of declarations that ramped up global tension to a new level. With a firm and resolute tone, Putin warned Western nations, especially NATO, that any attempt to defeat Russia would be futile and could escalate into nuclear conflict. His statement not only grabbed international attention, but also sparked widespread fear over the growing likelihood of nuclear war. To fully grasp this situation, we need to go back to the origins of the Ukraine conflict. Since Russia annexed Crimea in 2014, relations between Russia and the West, especially NATO, have been in crisis. The West saw the annexation as an act of aggression, a clear violation of international law, while Russia argued it was the will of the local population. Tensions grew as NATO began supplying Ukraine with weapons and military support to counter Russian influence, making Moscow feel increasingly threatened by what it perceived as a tightening network of NATO allies and advanced weaponry near its borders. In this context, Putin's latest statements are a strategic move to demonstrate that Russia will not back down under Western pressure. He emphasized that Russia possesses powerful nuclear weapons capable of striking any target within NATO territory, underscoring the gravity of his warning. This wasn't just an idle threat. It was a clear signal that Russia is ready to bring its nuclear arsenal to high alert if the situation continues to escalate. Further cementing his stance, Putin announced that Russia would suspend its participation in the New START treaty, a critical nuclear arms control agreement with the United States signed in 2010. New START was designed to limit the number of strategic nuclear warheads and delivery systems, serving as one of the last pillars of global arms control to prevent a full-scale nuclear arms race. Russia's withdrawal from the treaty has raised concerns that countries may now feel less constrained to ramp up their own arsenals, potentially sparking a new arms race. In response, NATO and Western leaders have reacted strongly. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg called Putin's nuclear rhetoric dangerous and reckless, emphasizing that while NATO does not seek war, it will not let Russia threaten the security of its member states. From Stoltenberg's perspective, NATO must remain united and firm against any threat from Russia, making it clear to Putin that he won't be able to achieve victory through military actions alone. The U.S. echoed this resolve, with President Joe Biden asserting that NATO is now stronger and more united than ever. Biden stressed that NATO will continue supporting Ukraine until the conflict is resolved and Russia is held accountable for its actions. This wasn't just a show of solidarity. It was a stark warning that the West has no intention of backing down in this standoff with Russia. One of the focal points of Putin's strategy is his announcement that Russia would deploy tactical nuclear weapons in Belarus, a Russian ally neighboring NATO. According to Putin, this move is a necessary response to the U.S. storing nuclear weapons in allied countries across Europe. This development has drawn widespread international condemnation, with analysts warning that placing nuclear weapons in Belarus could significantly increase the risk of nuclear conflict. It also signals that Russia isn't afraid to create new hotspots right on NATO's doorstep to apply pressure and deter the West. In light of these developments, Ukraine has called for an emergency United Nations Security Council meeting to condemn what it terms as nuclear blackmail by Russia. Ukraine hopes that backing from its allies, particularly in Europe, will create the necessary pressure to force Russia to de-escalate. European countries like Germany and France have also voiced their criticisms of Russia, pledging to continue supporting Ukraine both militarily and economically. Meanwhile, NATO is preparing for its largest military exercise since the Cold War, dubbed Steadfast Defender 2024. The exercise will involve 90,000 troops, more than 50 warships, and hundreds of aircraft from NATO member nations. This display of force aims to send a clear message that NATO is fully prepared to protect its members in the event of a conflict with Russia. NATO's actions are not only strengthening its defensive capabilities, but also signaling that it is ready to respond if Russia poses a direct threat to regional security. In addition to NATO's maneuvers, member nations are also conducting major drills, such as Poland's Dragon 24 exercise, designed to enhance rapid response capabilities in emergency situations. These drills are not just opportunities for NATO to test and improve its military strategies. They're also a warning to Russia that the alliance won't stand idle in the face of aggression. As NATO strengthens its defenses, Russia has also made the decision to expand its military personnel by adding nearly 170,000 new troops, bringing the total to approximately 1.32 million. This decision is part of Russia's preparation for a prolonged conflict and reflects its resolve not to yield under Western pressure. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz recently reaffirmed that Germany will continue supporting Ukraine, but will not directly enter the conflict. This stance reflects Germany's historical sensitivities regarding military engagement in Eastern Europe. Scholz emphasized that while Germany is committed to assisting NATO allies through financial aid and troop deployments to neighboring NATO countries, it won't be directly involved on the ground in Ukraine. The current standoff is not just a military showdown, it's a battle of influence and ideology between Russia and the West. The West insists that NATO is a defensive alliance dedicated to protecting its members' security, while Russia sees NATO as a direct threat to its national security, especially following the alliance's eastward expansion to include former Soviet states. This escalating conflict between Russia and NATO was reminiscent of the Cold War era, where both blocs continually showcased military strength and competed for political influence. But unlike the Cold War, where nuclear restraint was more firmly established, today's rhetoric and actions have brought the world closer to the unthinkable. The involvement of nuclear weapons makes this standoff far more dangerous than anything seen in recent decades. This mounting tension demands continued dialogue to avoid missteps that could lead to catastrophic consequences. One can only hope that with international efforts, this crisis can be resolved peacefully and prevent the world from slipping into a devastating conflict. Please hit like, share, and subscribe to support our channel. Your feedback motivates us to bring you more in-depth and high-quality analysis videos in the future. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.